Today our message is Your Thought is Your Life. We're continuing with our study of the book Discover the Power Within You in outline form. And we have recognized that Jesus was the great Columbus of the soul. He crossed the frontier and discovered the new world within. They tried to make a god of him, but he said, "What I am, ye are also. But you're not aware of it, so I have come to tell you." So while Christianity has emphasized the divinity of Jesus, Jesus taught very clearly the divinity of man, the Christ in everyone, the ability of every person to harness his inner power by controlling of his mind. We're considering the Sermon on the Mount now, the most articulate and practical outline of truth known to man. But the object is not so much man in general as you in particular. And the technique is not theology or symbolism, but the molding power of your own thought, for your thought is your life. The Sermon on the Mount begins with the Beatitudes, which we considered yesterday, and then it continues today, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men." Life without truth is like food without salt, flat and unpalatable. Salt not only has a taste of its own, but it enhances the taste of everything. When one is seasoned with the salt of truth, he becomes a seasoning influence in the world. But the savor is in the spirit, without which truth is little more than words. So salt without savor being cast underfoot is a figure of speech, a flat and lifeless salt that was gathered at Lake Asphaltites and was put on the floor of the temple to prevent slipping in wet weather. Salt of itself is a useless food. Its value is in seasoning. And truth is nothing of itself. It is only vital when it is used. How very many students do not know this and tend to become what I call overread and underdone. Truth is not something to argue about. It has value only when broken down into practical truths to live by, and then only when we actually do live by them. So the sermon continues, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven." You see, a city in those times was more of a commune, with buildings that were quite substantial and shelters that housed many families. One poor family may have had no butter to fuel their lamp, lest they would have to depend on the neighbor's light. A selfish family might resent this and put their lamp under a basket. Some students are embarrassed to let people know of their involvement with truth, so they hesitate to take a positive stand on truth in a negative situation. The point is, Jesus is saying, hold to the truth and let the chips fall where they may. Or the truth may zealously try to bring truth to his family or friends, reaping antagonism in both cases. Let your light shine. You don't have to tell people about your consciousness. In fact, you can't. You are your consciousness. It tells itself. And don't become a truth fact collector, but rather a light bringer. When you hear or read something, instead of dealing with it acquisitively, trying to tell others about it, take time to reflect on it until it becomes you. One who has a compulsion to introduce truth to others may be having a hard time making it work in his own life. Everyone is searching for meaning in life, so some try to find it as a teacher rather than in building his own consciousness. So don't simply be a light bringer. Be a light revealer. Be one who is dwelling in the consciousness of truth instead of constantly talking about it. Light was an important reality to Jesus. He said, "God is light, and in him is no darkness at all." But what is light? Do we really see light, or do we see what it does to us or what it causes us to do? Is light the radiance of a light bulb, or could it be an ever-present reality that is only awakened and released by the electrical energy? Does light really fill space like air? If I go into a room in daylight and pull the shades down, light does not escape through a hole, but it is no longer present like air. Where does it come from? Where does it go? What is light? It's a transcendent thing. Light is an everywhere present reality which at times, as a result of certain conditions, becomes visible to the eyes. So let your light shine means let yourself be what you really are. Let God be God in you. Like coal in the earth, within you is stored up substance or divine energy which may be stirred up and released. As Paul says, stir up the gift of God within you. And the mission of Jesus was to help people to discover their inner light, to let it shine, to help you today to discover your light. And the sermon goes on. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Jesus' new insight was resisted by the religious establishment. They thought he was a dangerous heretic. The word heresy comes from a root word meaning choice, select. It refers to one who chooses his own interpretation of truth. In other words, a free thinker. This was obviously a danger to a ritualist. Jesus was an iconoclast, but he made clear that fundamental law cannot be changed. His purpose thus was not to break law, not to set it aside, but rather to reveal it, to make it practical. He knew that religionists were so busy protecting creeds that they gave no thought to practicing spiritual truths. And they thought he broke the law when he worked miracles, but these wonders simply fulfilled the law. Now the temple rulers were sincere. The temple was the repository of the age-old accumulation of facts about God. And the rulers were the keepers of the keys, defenders of a faith that they really didn't understand. Jesus believed and proved that truth set men free, and the miracle result simply fulfilled the law. The rulers thought it was blasphemy because they didn't really understand or believe their own laws. So then we go on. Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom. No one has ever questioned the diligence of the Pharisees in keeping the commandments. So to exceed this kind of righteousness calls for a concerted effort to break down the tablets of stone into a workable formula for victorious living. And to show that Jesus' goal was to break down rather than to keep the commandments in their original form, he immediately launches into a clear program of how to break them. So he says, Ye have heard it said to them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. But I say unto you that every one who is angry with his brother shall be in danger of the judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, and whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. So thus Jesus broke the old commandment, broke it down. He didn't destroy the law. He made it possible for its fulfillment. What he's saying is, it's not what you seem to be that counts, or even what you do, it's what you think. So he's saying that murder and stealing and even adultery are acts of thought. And as far as mental law is concerned, we break the law when we think negatively. If you think such a thing as, I could just kill you for that, this is to break the commandment, thou shalt not kill, because you've broken it in consciousness. So when Jesus refers to judgment, it's not to outer experiences, but to inner states of consciousness. Judgment is in ourselves. We're not punished for our sins, we're punished by them. And the punishment is the hell of inner conflict that leads to physical stress and pain and disease and all kinds of personal problems. Every destructive thought is a killing thought, and there's the devil to pay. Emotional binges are not harmless tantrums. You can't have your pet peeves and your peace of mind, too. It's interesting that in the King James Version, this is rendered angry without cause. This was added by the translators because surely a person has a right to be angry about some things. How the old theologians held on to the concept of righteous indignation. Well, of course you have a right to your anger. You always have a choice, but you have to accept the responsibility and then the resulting ulcers and upset stomach and so forth. A person may give you an opportunity to be angry, but he can never cause your anger. You do. Remember the Chinese saying, one may not be able to keep the birds from flying over his head, but he can keep them from building nests in his hair. If someone gets under your skin or in your hair, it is because you are violating the law of consciousness. One may be outwardly annoying, but when he annoys you, it is your thought that made the problem. Change your thought, and you change the experience. So it goes on, Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Prayer is of the Spirit, you see, not just form. If we pray, forgive us our debts, as we forgive, and we do not forgive, who are we fooling? Prayer changes things only if it changes consciousness. And then agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and the officer be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. The two key words here are agree, meaning to settle with and dispose of, and adversary, meaning your adverse thoughts about people or situations. the judge and the prison and so forth, paints an interesting picture, showing how failure to settle the mental aberration immediately can lead to bondage. Now, this does not prohibit taking a stand against injustice. Jesus is talking about thought. The real adversary is not a person or a condition, but the thought about it. So deal first and quickly with your negative thought. And when you get your thought right, you will be led in right and wise ways. In every experience, there's a time when the problem exists as a seed possibility. Feuds, emotional problems, illnesses, and so forth all come as a seed possibility in consciousness. So don't procrastinate. When you begin to feel an adverse thought about someone, deal with it right away, or the fire may spread. Settle with the adversary. Agree with God. Get your thought on truth and keep it there. If you have a sudden thought of a cold or a sudden fear of unemployment, all contagion begins in the mind, so start right then to control it. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control or settle with what you think about what happens. A serenity of spirit cannot be achieved until we become the masters of our own actions and attitudes. To let another person determine whether we shall be rude or gracious, elated or depressed, is to relinquish control over our own lives, which is ultimately all we possess. For the only true possession is self-possession.